Today we're going to talk about the Raspberry Pi 02W. This is a great board for using it with OctoPi or OctoPrint. I've discovered this by playing with it for the last 2 weeks, so I wanted to show you how to set it up. But the first thing I actually wanted to show you is how it operates currently. So if you go over to our desktop over here, you can see that it's actually running quite well. And the cool thing is you can actually also capture time-lapse images of the actual printing at the same time so that you can actually work with it. And I've tested it now with 4 different cameras. So I've used a 720p for a webcam, a 1080p, then I've also used a DLSR, and now I'm using a different camera that you can watch as it's proceeding over here. And I'll put all of them in the description so you can see which ones I used. So let me show you how to set this up now. So if we go back over to the desktop, what we need to do is take the drive right here and image it. So in order to image it, we have to place it in our SD card reader. So now that the SD card reader is filled, we'll plug it into the computer. Now on the computer's desktop, we're going to actually have to set this up. So the first thing you're going to need to do is actually go to the OctoPrint.org website. And then you can click on this over here. Now this is a 32-bit image. I've tested the 64-bit image. It does not work for the Raspberry Pi 0 version 2W. And also this probably does not work on the Raspberry Pi 0W. So now that that's downloaded, what you want to do after it finishes downloading is extract it over here. Now I've already extracted it right here, so the image file exists already. And this is the one that's currently downloading, but to actually extract, you'll click on it and then you'll click the extract all button. But seeing how I've already done that, we're going to go over to Raspberry Pi for the Raspberry Pi Imager. Now I'm going to choose the actual configuration with Use Custom. Then I'm going to go to my Downloads folder, click on the image file, and then Open. Once that's opened, I'm going to then choose the actual SD card to write to. Now you can do up to 64 gigabits, no problem. At the moment I don't have a 32 or a 64-bit to show you, so I'm using an 8 gigabit. So I'm going to write to this. I'm going to say yes. Now this may take a few minutes to actually image, probably about 5-10 minutes. So what I'm going to do is pause the video for a moment and then pick up after it's completed. Okay, now it's just about complete with the verification process. So in a second, this is going to say that it's imaged successfully. So what we're going to have to do is first I'll click continue. Then I need to pop out the drive for a moment so that it can be visible to the computer again. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pop out the drive, then I'm going to place it back in the computer. Then I'm going to go back over to the desktop for a moment. And I'm going to bring up the actual folder. So inside here we have a boot folder. You're going to have to look for the OctoPi WPA supplicant.txt to make this wireless. So you're going to right click on that. Now you're going to have to use Notepad++. So you'll open that and I'll place a link for this in the description. Now what you're going to need to do is actually remove the actual comments. In this case I had already had it open, so it was still in the buffer. So it's going to look a little bit different in your case. You'll see hash marks in front of it like so. And these are comments that cause it to look like it can't be used. So you're going to have to remove these like so. And the things you're going to need to know about it are you're going to have to place or put your SSID here. That's the name of your router. And then this would be the password for your router, which is phase shift key. In this case is what they call PS key. It might be pass shift key as well, but usually PSK means phase shift key. So now that we know that, we'll have to actually do these. But considering I already have it done and I'm trying to hide what my router looks like, I'm going to go over to my downloads folder for a second. And I'm going to copy the edited supplicant that I actually already used and paste it over the other one. So it's going to go right here. Now I'm going to pop out the drive and go back over to the workbench. I'm going to take the drive and place it inside the Raspberry Pi 02. Now, a couple of things you're going to need to know about this. On here we have obviously our USB. Then we have our power. This you're probably not going to use, but it's your HDMI. This is your SD card. Here's your MCU, and this MCU is actually a 64-bit MCU, and it has 4 core processors. There's also a link that you can use for a camera. Now, what I've done is I've actually designed a case that you can see over to the left, and I'll put that up on Patreon for my patrons. And I have various lids that I'm designing currently for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm first going to connect this little connector for the USB right here. And what I'm doing with this is I'm using it as a breakout so I can connect the actual camera that we're going to record with. This is 720p. Obviously there's other ones you can use. So I'm going to connect this up as soon as I find the actual cable connection to it, which is right here. And we'll have that set. Now, if you're using an actual hub for USB, you're going to have to actually use a powered USB hub. A non-powered or passive hub will not work. So this is the power supply that came with the Canon kit. So I'm going to connect this as well, and this will power the Pi. So I also noticed that you don't really need a fan to run this. So I'm going to make 2 versions of the lid that'll be up on Patreon. So this will take a second to actually load. So what I like to do is actually go over to the desktop, and I'll show you a couple of methods that you can use. Over here, I have a DOS window. Sometimes this will not work, so keep that in mind. You'll do ARP, which is ARP space -A. And that'll show you everything on your network currently. So as you can see, I have 1.1. This is actually the router that everything is going through to communicate. Up here, you can see this is my computer being 1.3. And then 1.2 is actually the other instance of Raspberry Pi's OctoPrint that's currently running. So I'll bring that up so you can see. So over here you can see 1.2. So you could use your actual router by going to its address being 192.168.1.1 if that's your router. And then you can look for connected devices. But currently, I have a pretty good feeling what it might be. So I'm going to go back over here and ARP again. And if it doesn't show up, I'll show you a trick that you can use to find it. So as you can see, it's not showing up at the moment. So I'm going to ping an address of 192.168.1.4 and see what happens. So I'm getting a reply which tells me that there's another device that I can't see, but you can also see this in connected devices. So let's try ARPing again. So as you can see now, it's actually showing up. So we don't actually need to use connected devices. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go over here and I'm going to type 192.168.1.4 and press enter. Now I'm going to have to configure this, so this might take a second. So let me make sure I got the address right. Sometimes it gets a little bit locked up. If it does, then we can go to connected devices and see what's going on. But it might take a moment to actually load, and that might be the delay. So if that is the case, then we won't have to worry. So let's go over to connected devices. Now you can see there's two OctoPis, and currently this one says 1.5. So let's try that address because I probably have it wrong and I'm getting a ping for no apparent reason. So let's try that. So if this doesn't work, then we'll refresh and see if we can fix it. But at present, it does take a moment to actually load. So there we go. It was actually this address and I had the wrong one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up quick by clicking next. I'm not going to do an upload and restore because I don't currently have one. I'm going to call this Pi, and then I'm going to say Raspberry for the password, and then Raspberry for the password again. I'm going to create an account. Of course, they don't match apparently, so I'm going to have to backspace and type that again. And now I'll create the account. I'm going to close this and close this. I'm going to go next. I'm going to set up the enable connectivity check. Then I'm going to go next. I'm going to disable anonymous tracking. Then I'm going to enable blacklist plugins for processing. Then I'm going to go next. And I'm going to change the default name to OctoPi in lowercase letters 1. And then I'm going to say next, and then next again. Now this will bring up the environment for the OctoPi. Obviously I can't connect to anything because I currently don't have a printer connected like the other configuration over here. But as you can see, we can move this around and still watch what's going on by homing these axes. So let's go back over here and set up the camera real quick. So in order to actually do updates, you're going to have to click on the settings, and they have a whole bunch of things here. Normally, if you want to do updates, there's something down in here for updating, but we're not going to do that today. So I'll just go through these real quick and see if we can find it. So we have firmware check, printer dialogues, virtual printer. We have software update. So you do update all normally, but you'll also probably get warnings. So let's actually set up the camera real quick. So we're going to go over here and we're going to find the actual webcam in this case. And we're going to do a test and see if it works. So as you can see, it is working. So that's good. Let's wave our hand in front of it just to make sure. So that is all set. Now you can set a bunch of things where you can change things around. And then of course you have, different things that you can do. So I'm going to click save on this for now and go over to time-lapse. Now you can turn time-lapse mode on so you can record your prints to see what might go wrong or go right. And then save your changes, and then they'll display like they do on the other one for time-lapse over here. So we can watch a print and how it occurs based on that. Now the other cool thing is that you can actually download old ones and watch them as well. So those are some things that are really cool about this configuration with the Raspberry Pi Zero 2W. This will not work on a Raspberry Pi Zero. So at this moment, I'd like to thank all of my patrons, and I'll play that in just a moment at the end of the video. And for those that like the video, please press the like button and also subscribe. And everyone, take care, be safe, get vaccinated, and wear a mask.